Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and we're only about a week away from the first time we'll ever see iOS 16 and iPadOS 16. So I wanted to talk about what we know. Now, as far as expected supported devices, I've talked about this a bit in the past, but many suspect that we'll no longer have support for iPhone SE, iPhone 6s or 6s Plus, and possibly even the iPhone 7. Basically, phones with 3 gigs of RAM that were similar to the iPod Touch would no longer be supported. Now, we don't know this 100%. Apple could extend its life for these, but usually at this point, it's been about 6 years. I don't expect them to be supported, but hopefully for those that use these as their main devices, it will be. As far as iPadOS support, the same is true. We know recently with the iPad Air 2 that Apple made it a legacy device. It's no longer supported, and so I wouldn't expect any device like this with a similar processor to be supported. So the iPad Air 2 is not expected to get iPadOS 16. But hopefully we'll see maybe some revisions to that. We'll know the day iOS 16 is released. Now, as far as iOS 16, if you haven't heard already, it's due on June 6th at WWDC. We expect it to be released that day with iPadOS 16, iOS 16, watchOS 9, tvOS 16, HomePodOS 16, and macOS 13 Mammoth. We expect every one of those to come out, with the public betas coming out later in July around the time of iOS 16 Developer Beta 2 or 3. Usually that's what Apple does. That's what we expect at this point. Now, as far as what to expect, we expect major changes. Some of this comes from Mark Gurman, some of this is hidden, and I think there's going to be quite a few surprises at this point. Mark Gurman specifically has said that we could expect some major ways to change the overall way we interact with our device, whether that be the control center or something else, and we also expect some major changes to iPadOS and even watchOS 9. Now, one thing many people are expecting but may only pertain to the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max is an always-on display. Now, if that's the case, we wouldn't hear about it at WWDC, but rather at the time of the release of the iPhone 14 sometime in September. However, there's no reason that the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max couldn't have that feature. It can actually ramp the display refresh rate up and down. We know that it can go from 60 to 120 and even down to 48 Hertz. The Apple Watch does the same sort of thing to save battery and have an always-on display. There's no reason, and at this point, I don't see any excuse for not actually having that. Now, we already know about accessibility features that will be launching with iOS 16, and Apple actually showed those on their Apple website. So if we go there, you can see it says Apple previews innovative accessibility features combining the power of hardware, software, and machine learning. I'm not going to go over everything in detail, but we expect live captions, Apple Watch mirroring, as you can see here. They've already said we'll have that, door detection using your phone's camera, 20 new languages for voiceover, dictation updates for letter-by-letter input, as well as customized sound detection. You can teach it what sounds to listen for, and also things such as buddy controller, where you can have 2 controllers at once so you can help someone along if they're having difficulty in a video game. So that with live captions and more. We already know those are going to be in iOS 16, but those new ways to interact could have something to do with Control Center. Maybe there's a new interaction here, maybe a full redesign. We don't know for sure, and I think that's actually an exciting thing. Also, one thing that Mark Gurman has said is to expect some notification updates. Now, what that means specifically, we just don't know at this point. But if we go into Notification Center, you can see here with notifications, they're a little bit difficult to see. The most recent at the top, but then you have to go into them more, and more customization would be welcome. So maybe some new ways to interact with notifications. Also, updated widgets that are interactive. I think Apple planned this all along where we would have interactive widgets. Right now, they're sort of static and they're not doing a whole lot. Maybe we could change locations on our little widget here for weather, or maybe play music from the music app on our music widget. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense that we have all of these things visualized but no interaction with them. So I would expect an update to that, and I think that's what Apple was going for when they introduced them and just wanted to roll that out slowly. Also, we expect updates to car crash detection. This is something that Android's had for a while. When the phone senses a jarring movement, such as the watch does with a fall, we can expect car crash detection to kick in and then help you notify emergency services to come help if you need that. So that's something I would expect, as well as maybe in the iPhone 14 with emergency satellite communication. That's something that's long been rumored, as Apple has a patent on that, where that would not only come to the iPhone, but also the Apple Watch. So those are things, though, I would expect with iPhone 14. I wouldn't expect them to already be built in, but it would allow you to make emergency service calls. Maybe you went for a hike, you have your watch and your phone, you need a little bit of help, but you have no cell signal. It could actually connect to satellites and relay that information back where you are and where that you actually need some help. So that makes a lot of sense, and I would love to see that. Also, health updates are expected. So if you use the Health app, this is expected to get some major updates along with watchOS 9. So all of those things are expected. What else is expected? I don't know, but I would love to see icons updated. These icons have been flat, slightly changed over time, but pretty much flat since iOS 7. I would love to see them updated to what we have with macOS for more consistency. We saw that a little bit with Keynote, Pages, and Numbers. So if we go to Keynote here, you can see that the icon is very similar to what we have on macOS. This makes sense. They updated this. Updating things to make everything consistent across all the devices makes a lot of sense. Anything else, though, we just don't know, and I think that's an exciting thing this time around. We do expect iOS to include information regarding RealityOS, which is expected on the new AR/VR headset. So those things are expected in the code, maybe some new ways of interaction hint to that, but we'll have to wait and see in just about a week or so. Now, iPadOS is even more of a mystery. One thing I've mentioned with iPadOS is that there's a recent patent that shows when you set the iPad into a dock with an iPad Pro, it could turn into a Pro mode with a macOS experience. This is something I would really think makes a lot of sense. Now that we have an M1 chipset inside the iPad Pro and iPad Air, there's no reason we couldn't have that. So we could have full Mac capability. I don't think it would eat into Mac sales, as this is sort of a smaller device typically, but that would be something great to see. Have this as a portable Mac that's super portable, but also a tablet. Now, Microsoft Surface does something similar, but it's not as great as I would have hoped, and I think Apple switching between iPadOS and macOS or some sort of Pro mode would be very welcome. They have the patents for that, docking into a keyboard, so maybe that's something we'll see in the future. However, recently leaked this past week is some information on WebKit with GitHub. So Apple publishes a lot of this information, and WebKit is the infrastructure behind Safari. And one thing they noticed, Steve Troughton-Smith on Twitter, he actually recently noticed that it looks like there's a new multitasking mode where it would actually allow you to fully resize windows on iPad. So instead of just having split side-by-side windows, we could have full windows that you could resize here. So in Safari, if we bring in maybe music here, we have split view. Many of you are familiar with this with slide over, but we would really like to see full multitasking here with split view brought to iPhone. There's no rumors of that yet, but it seems to make sense. The whole back end here is already there so that they can build that in. It works with iPad. There's no reason they couldn't use it on iPhone as well, and then make true multitasking on iPad, where we could have windows and actually have things that are windowed like we have on Mac. So that's something that makes a lot of sense, and I hope we see soon. However, everything beyond that is a bit of a mystery. So right now, that's everything we know. There's not much more to talk about other than let's wait and see what Apple actually has. Maybe there'll be some additional leaks this weekend, or maybe as we get closer to WWDC, we could see more about that. So far, that's everything we know about iOS 16 and iPadOS 16. We do know that watchOS 9 is expected to get some major updates, but that's been very tight-lipped as well. I'm pretty excited this year because we just don't typically know so little about these upcoming updates. When we got close to last year's update, we heard more and more that it could be a little bit of a disappointment, but it had tons of changes. Basically what iOS 13 and 14 had combined, it had that many changes, but most of them were small things. We saw SharePlay and a few small things here and there, but nothing that was visually changed. We're also expecting some major app updates. So app updates with new icons and things like that are expected, but we really don't know a whole lot, and that's why I'm so excited. Let me know what you're looking most forward to in the comments below, and of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.